the debt kept stacking up, and I saw I was not going to be able to pay it off, and that's why I had declared the bankruptcy. In 1 year, always debt free, and then in just 1 year, happens.
Doesn't happen. Bad decisions happen. $23,000 of expenses on a credit card is not a little bit of money here and there.
My name is Jace. I'm 26 years old.
Awesome. What do you do for work, Jace?
Right now, I'm currently in LA, full-time actor and director.
And how much you make a year right now doing that?
Currently, I just moved here, so I'm living off my savings for now until I find a steady job.
Okay, so we have no income right now?
Just like here and there, gig work, $100 here, $200 there.
How much are you bringing in a month on gig work right now?
I just moved here 2-3 weeks ago, so currently I've made about $500 to $600.
Okay, so not much. Okay, and how would you kind of define your current financial situation on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being horrific, 10 being picture perfect.
5.
Why do you say that?
Because I think if I was completely broke under a couple $100 in my bank account, then it'd probably be horrific. But at the moment, I have 2,000 something saved up, which should be enough for at least a month or two of living expenses if I don't happen to find a steady job or more acting gigs and stuff like that.
With that, then let's talk about what brought you to LA. So you just moved there 2 or 3 weeks ago. Where'd you move from?
Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. And what did you do for work in Miami?
I've always been into filmmaking and acting, but I had a day job there. Last job, I was working at a doctor's office full-time.
And how much you're making there?
Monthly after taxes, about $2,400.
Okay, was it hourly or was it salaried rule?
Hourly.
Okay. What are you making, about $20 an hour? 18?
I started at $16.50, and right before I left, I was at $18.50 for a couple weeks.
And what made you jump from Miami over to LA then?
It's where my industry's at. I figured there wasn't any more growth in Miami for what I was doing, and I wanted to come over here and be immersed into an area where it's pretty much, where the filmmaking is at.
When you made it to LA, you had, what, $3,000 in your bank account, or how much in your bank account at the time?
After I paid off the first month of the Airbnb where I'm at and the car shipping and all that, it's roughly $3,000. $3,000 and a couple, $200.
Okay, that is not a huge balance to live off of in a place like LA, so.
Yeah.
Let's talk about current assets then. How much is your bank account right now?
I think I checked earlier today, I don't remember, but it's 2,000 something.
So it's, the last statement I have has an ending balance of $1,880, but that was on March 15th, so that was over a month ago. So it's gone up since then?
Yeah, I've sold some of my belongings on eBay, some collectibles I have and stuff like that.
Okay. So 2,000 and some change? 2,400, 2,500, 2,200?
Say probably 2,200, closer to there.
Okay. And do we have any retirement accounts, any investment accounts?
No.
Okay. And then on the debt side, do we have any debt right now?
Currently, no.
No debt. I did skip one thing. Value of car. You shipped it out to LA. What kind of car do you drive and how much is it worth?
Nissan Rogue 2010. Its market value, it's like 2,500 to 3,000.
How many miles does it have on it?
Right now, about 90K.
Oh, it's not worth a little bit more?
Last time I checked, it was 2.5 to 3,000 bucks.
Yeah, I mean, I see a 2010 Nissan Rogue with 105,000 miles for $8,000.
As a rare find.
I see another one for sale that has, I do see some of them in the 5,000, 4,000 range, 6,000. I guess it depends on the trim, but I'd give you at least $5,000 for the car.
Yeah.
Some bumped up to 5,000. So we got 8,000 assets and no debt. So before we dive into like your monthly expense and everything, let's talk about your prior financial situation. So before you came on the show, you let me know that you had $23,000 worth of debt, but you've recently declared bankruptcy. So talk me through that process. Where did that $23,000 worth of debt stem from?
So I was always someone that was pretty responsible with credit cards. I never had any debt. My balance was always zero. I literally only had them just to build my credit score. And pretty much the bulk of that debt came in the last year and a half. I was working part-time for a year, and I was pretty much putting all my expenses on the credit cards, like groceries, any time here and there I had to go out. Pretty much nothing paying off with my debit card, and everything was going on the credit card. And the interest rate started to stack up, and I was pretty much making payments, and I wasn't really paying off anything because I was practically only paying off the interest rates. So then the debt kept stacking up, and I saw I was not going to be able to pay it off, and that's why I had declared the bankruptcy.
It's
sad, yeah.
Sad, being 26 years old and declaring bankruptcy already. And that is the number one reason why if you try to play the credit card game, you can destroy your life.
Yeah. In 1 year. Always debt free, and then in just 1 year, happens.
Shit doesn't happen. Bad decisions happen. That's shit. That is intentionally bad decisions on eating out, going out.
But that's the thing. I don't really do a whole lot of that. I'm more of a homebody. I don't really buy a whole lot of stuff. Yeah, I might have bought a couple of things here and there, but most of it is just
$23,000 of expenses on a credit card is not a little bit of money here and there.
It was over a year and a half. just literally paying off everything like groceries, my phone payments, and pretty much everything but rent. Because rent, yeah, I was living with my mom and I paid her my half.
Wait, so you live with your mom during this and you still racked up $23,000 of debt?
Yeah. I could kind of tell you where some of it came from, like specific amounts, like, oh, 3,000 came from this, 4,000 came from that.
Yeah, what were some of the big things?
So I had made a feature film in 2022, and about 3 or 4,000 was some video film festivals, hoping that it got picked up and I sold the film. So that's about 4,000 right there. From going out and stuff like that in a year and a half, I'd say probably I was in a relationship that was very money draining, unfortunately. So I'd say about 2 to 3,000 from just going out on trips and stuff like that over a year.
I'd jack that up to 5 or 6,000 if you let that relationship was money draining. It's got to cost you more than that.
It was only a couple months, so thankfully.
Okay, so that's $6,000 to $7,000.
The last like $4,000 I already knew I was gonna declare bankruptcy, so
Since to run it up even more, why not?
it was last minute decision because it could help me with my career because I got a new camera to like hopefully do gig work with. This was I already knew I was gonna do the bankruptcy, so the last 3 out of the 23 it was getting a new camera since I already knew I was gonna make the bankruptcy, so I figured might as well, it might help me make money in the future.
Is that legal?
Well, they approved the bankruptcy, so I guess.
Oh, that is horrible. Having the intent of having to declare bankruptcy, let's just run up a $3,000 camera. Okay, so lesson number 1 from that: please don't ever use a credit card again. Not that you're gonna get approved for anything anytime soon, but don't ever use a credit card again.
Yeah.
Because you chased the credit score game and that destroyed you. Number 2, starting businesses on a credit card. It's a difficult situation to be in because you pour your life and soul into it. And you're just like, I mean, I've been there before. I've spent way too much money in businesses that didn't work out. And you want to just keep going and keep going because like, oh, the next $1,000 is going to get me to that point I need to be. And it's a very dangerous situation to be in because you'll just spend money you don't have. If you have cash and you only spend cash, then guess what? You physically can't go into debt with it. So starting businesses on credit cards is something I highly suggest you never do again, or anyone watch this to never do, because it just is a bad habit and can lead to poor decision. Number 3, relationships. Gotta have boundaries on those.
Yeah, learn my lesson.
Learned your lesson there. Okay, so talk me through, I haven't talked to someone that's gone through bankruptcy recently. Talk me through the process. What did that look like? How long did you declare bankruptcy and how long did that process take you?
I received the final notice letter in the mail about 3 weeks ago, right when I had gotten to LA, because my mom got it in the mail and she just sent me a picture so I could have it for my records. I started the process back in November, so I guess it takes around 5 to 6 months. Every case is different. They pretty much made me do paperwork with an outline of all my expenses, how much I make. I had to submit the last 10 months of my statements from my bank account and my PayPal or Cash App account. And then you pretty much you set up the court date, and it was through Zoom. It's like a group thing, and they call one person at a time. And they ask you a couple like basic questions. The only question I remember they asked me on the Zoom court meeting was if I had recently gotten into a car accident. In my case, my car wasn't under my name then. And yeah, after that, they just make a decision in about 3 or 6 months. In my case, it was about 3 months. And whether you either have to pay off a portion or you're completely dismissed.
And so were you completely dismissed?
Yeah.
Or what are you doing now moving forward to change your financial situation so you don't end up in the same exact situation again?
So I'll pretty much do what I did before I ended up in it. If I didn't have it cash, I couldn't afford it. The only reason I had declared the bankruptcy is because, like I said before, I literally only used credit cards just for the purpose of building my credit score. And it was even like at 800 something before I got in that financial situation. So it's not like I really need credit cards. My spending habits, like I don't really go out too much and stuff like that. And cook home cooked meals most of the time.
Can I ask you something about playing the credit score game? Why did you care so much about trying to increase your credit score?
Well, for the privileges I lost now that I declared bankruptcy, like, for getting like a new car, I guess renting a place, or if you have, I guess, a lot of assets, I guess buying a place. I think some jobs too might ask about your credit score. Not sure on that one, but I know getting a new car or renting a new place might ask.
Yeah, definitely. If you're buying a house or a car, it can help your interest rate a little bit lower, but it's not worth chasing that for a little bit higher score to drown yourself in debt. And that's the unfortunate reality I've seen a lot of people get into, is they want to play the credit score game and then find themselves in a situation where they overspend way too much or in a terrible spot. So, well, that is not a fun situation to go through in your 20s. It scares me for your future, and I really hope that you've learned from that so that you can draw up a plan. And if you stick to the plan of now moving forward, you don't have cash, you can't afford it, you can find yourself in a much better situation moving forward and never find yourself in that situation again. So One question do you have on the bankruptcy, the $3,000 in your bank account, did they not take that through the process?
So what they ask is for any assets if your car is like somewhat recent, I guess like within the last 4 to 6 years that you got it. If you own a place, any like really expensive belongings you might have, like
Like a camera?
yeah, I guess yeah. I don't remember if I put it on the thing or not, but I pretty much make everything that I own like an estimate. Oh, like all the things you own, how much is it worth? They make you write that down on the documents. And I did my research before declaring it, and I had read pretty much if you had like a car that was under your name, they could repossess it and use that to pay off a portion of the debt. Or if you own a home or something, you might have to sell it, or an apartment. In my case, I was living with my mom, so I pretty much didn't have anything under my name. My car was under her name. Even then, it's a pretty old car, so they would have probably not taken it.
Between that and the camera on the thing, it's $8,000 it would have taken.
Because I think for that case, it has to be like really deep debt, like 50, 60K or something like that, for them to consider you coming into your home and like, oh, how much is that, and taking it.
Okay. Well, let's figure out, how did you get to this bankruptcy? So tell me a little bit more about your upbringing, where you grew up, and how you saw your parents manage money growing up.
So my mom had told me my family's Cuban, and she told me back in Cuba she was an accountant. So she was always very careful with her money and would budget everything right to make sure she had enough money for every month, pay the essentials, rent, the food. So I would say pretty money conscious in terms of making sure you're not in debt, or you don't owe anyone money, or you have enough money to pay your essentials for the next couple months and saving up.
So I guess didn't listen to her on that behalf when it comes to the accounting side and budgeting and saving everything. What has her attitude been towards the entire situation going to bankruptcy with you?
Pretty much pissed about me doing it at a young age. I saw it as like a last option, because I did the math, and I had like 5 credit accounts open. It was, the minimum payment was about $100 for each, but the interest rates were about 100 or 150 each. So I'd pretty much pay, and I wouldn't be actually paying off my debt. But if it wasn't for the interest rates, it would have taken me about 10, 15 years just paying the minimums to fully pay everything off. And I saw that, didn't seem realistic. So I figured it'd be the best option to start over.
I mean, if you're living at home with your mom making $2,400, I mean, if you had been living at home, throwing $1,000 out at a month, you could have done it.
Well, that's the thing. I wasn't living at home for free. I paid my own food, my own phone bill, half the rent.
How much was half the rent?
$500.
Okay, so if you had rent of that $500, your insurance, gas, groceries, I mean, that's $1,000 plus, call it $300 of other miscellaneous stuff. I mean, you could have gotten away with $1,400 in expenses and bringing in $2,400 if you're working full time, which would have allowed you $1,000 a month to throw at the credit card debt. And it would have taken you 24 months to probably get out of it, but definitely would have been possible.
For a while, I was actually attempting to pay it off, and I was spending $600 a month just paying debt. And I saw it wasn't going down because of the interest rates. And that's what kind of drove me to.
Yeah, well, I mean, $600 isn't going to make a dent in when you have $500 worth of interest payments. But if you're making $2,400, but you weren't working full time, so you must not have been bringing in $2,400 at the time. How much were you bringing in during the time if you're working part time?
$2,400 a month was from last August till this April. The first half of 2023, I was working part time. I don't remember how much I was taking home during that time. Probably 1,600 around there.
Okay, so because you're working part time, yeah, I mean, if you're working part time, there's no way you're gonna make much movement on that.
Yeah, that's where most of the mistake happened, I guess I could say.
Yeah, if you were working full time, you definitely could have. It wouldn't have been easy to get out of it, but you definitely could have lived off of $1,400, $1,500 and thrown $900 a month at it, and gotten a job on the weekend to bring in more money and get it paid off in 2 years. Could have sold the camera, could have done other things to get that down, but I guess chose not the easy route, because going to bankruptcy is not necessarily easy, but you chose the route of not having to live with no money to pay off debt and go through that process. So definitely a choice, not the choice I probably would have taken, but we're here. It's been done. So now we got to figure out, how do we improve your situation, move forward? How do we not land back in that same exact situation? Because bankruptcy is what I would consider a Band-Aid. It is kind of like balance transfers on credit cards. It solves your current situation. It stops the bleeding. But if you don't solve the root of all problems, which is bad spending habits, bad money management, then you're going to find yourself in the same exact situation with $20,000 worth of credit card debt in a year and 2 years from now, whatever that might be. Granted, probably won't get approved for credit cards right now, but you get my point. Is if you don't change your financial habits now, it's going to screw you for the rest of your life. So I guess that's what we have to focus on moving forward. So let's take it back to college. What did you study in college?
Like I said, I always knew I wanted to act and make films, so I didn't really think college was necessary to be able to achieve that. But I did a AD in theater, or science of arts.
Okay, so your goal long term is being a director in Hollywood or acting?
Yeah.
That is not an easy career path to make it in either, because obviously there's a lot of competition. It's fierce in LA for that, but definitely a tough one. So walk me through your current budgeting process then when it comes to your finances, especially now that you moved somewhere where you have a couple $1,000s in your bank account and no income right now.
So, like I said, before this 1 year of racking up all that debt, I was always, like, when I would spend on my credit cards, I would literally pay it off right away when I'd get home and be like, okay, I spent $100 on my credit card, pay it off right away or the next day. I wouldn't say I never really had any spending issues, so I literally just go back to what I was doing before, just not going out much. You know, we all have to, like, you know, take our minds off things and go out, whether with a girlfriend, boyfriend, or on your own to do whatever it is you like to do. But I try to not do that too much. And yeah, just pretty much go back to not really buying a whole bunch of belongings. Not someone that really needs a whole lot of things to survive, as long as I have a roof over my head and food.
Do you track your expenses and budget, or do you just say, hey, mentally, I'm not going to go out, I'm going to spend less money this month?
Put it on paper for a while, especially before I had declared bankruptcy, I was trying to pay it off. I was writing down how much I'd spend every month on everything. Now I just keep mental track. I know how much I would spend on like food and stuff. I know I'm not going to pass like $230, $250 on groceries a month. Right now, this Airbnb, I'm paying $1,300. So like I know a certain amount that I would have to keep in my bank account to make sure that, okay, I'll be set for next month, and then next month I'll be set for the following month.
Okay, do you want me to give you a piece of advice so you don't end up in bankruptcy again? You need to be tracking every single expense down to the T, knowing I spent this exact dollar amount on food, this exact dollar amount on shopping, on eating out, on groceries, on everything else in between. Like, there should not be a month that you can't look on a spreadsheet or an app that doesn't tell you, okay, I spent down to the exact T how much money, because if you just do it mentally, yes, those $28, $30 transactions don't sound like much, but they add up quickly. If you go to the grocery store 12 times in a month, it adds up quickly. If you go shopping online, it adds up quickly. And the last thing I want to happen to you is you declare bankruptcy again because you just get careless of your finances. You need to be very intentional about your money.
I used to keep it physically in a notebook, actually, because I felt more comfortable like being able to actually see, like, and writing it myself. So back when I was doing it, I would actually put in a little notebook that I had.
You could do a notebook again, but with technology, and I mean, on this statement alone, we got probably 100 transactions. So it's like, you don't want to be having to write down 100 different transactions on a month and remembering from 3 weeks ago, this Walmart transaction for $28, what was it? So I would suggest doing it electronically. I personally think it's a lot easier. That's what technology is for. Let's use it. So, okay. So let's look at your current expenses. So you sent me this. This was transactions from February 16th to March 15th. So this was before you moved to LA. You were still in Miami. Do you know how much money you brought in during that time period and how much money you spent?
I looked at it right before I sent you, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't remember.
Take a guess on how much money went out of your bank account that statement period.
Well, that month I had booked the Airbnb to move here and probably paid for my car shipment, so probably more than what went in.
Give me a number.
2,500, 3,000 maybe.
See, this is the issue when you don't track your expenses down to a T. $3,826. And so you spent $800 to $1,300 more than you expected right there, because you look at the statement and there's the rent for $1,300. There's the car shipment. I think was this one for $741. Was that the car shipment?
The car shipment for that period, I probably only paid a percentage. I think it was like $341. Should be under Yuri Auto Transport, I think is the statement name.
Okay. If you don't track these expenses, it just adds up quickly. So that's why I'm a big proponent on making sure everything is tracked properly and down to a T. So let's look at this. To start the statement, you had a balance of $1,000 or so. It looks like you had just under $1,200 deposited on the 16th. And this is where the fun starts, it looks like. We got Wendy's for $4.28, Walmart for $51, Publix for $5. So going to multiple different grocery stores the same day is definitely something that will cause you to spend more money. We've got Amazon for $102 on February 20th. What is that for?
I see that. I'd probably have to open it. It'd be better if I open my computer so I could look at these things with you.
Please do. I like knowing what are these expenses, because especially in your situation where you're moving to LA at this time, things that are not necessities should be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Because you are living on a tight string budget with your expenses, and the last thing you'd be doing is throwing away money when you're trying to make it out in LA without an income.
The two grocery store thing. So I do all my groceries at Walmart. Typically about $30 or $50 a week, usually $50. There are like one or two things that Walmart doesn't have, so that's when I would go to Publix to buy like that one or two things that they don't have.
Amazon was February 18th or 20th, $102.16.
That is protein powder
Protein powder.
and protein bars for lunch and stuff at work.
Okay. Well, sorry, we didn't go through your budget. Let's go through your budget real quick, and then we'll jump back to the statements. That's my bad. Okay, so your monthly budget right now in LA, it looks like $1,350 for your rent and your Airbnb. You've got car insurance $150, gas for $240, groceries $200. So your total necessities is $1,940. We got subscriptions $200, entertainment $50, health and fitness $40, and personal care $20. Now on your monthly expenses, we've got the Walmart for $102. That was protein powder. We've got Wendy's. We've got things like Adobe for $23. We've got a website thing for $27. Again, these are things that need to be put in your budget too, because right now on your budget, there's nothing that shows anything about Adobe for $23, your website stuff for $27, protein powder. I know that's not every single month. You have $40 in there now. I'm assuming there's probably other personal care. But again, those are things why it's very important to have a written budget, to have it tracked to a T, because you're going to spend a lot more money than you think.
Yeah.
What is Sunshine in Miami on February 20th?
That's probably gas is like $35-$40.
Okay, yeah, $35. We've got Walmart again for $58. So we had a Walmart trip 3 days apart, $50 each. We've got Prime Video, another $18. So like again, in your budget, we have nothing that talks about rentals. And I'm all for like, you obviously want to have entertainment and stuff, but you need to make sure that you're putting that somewhere in your budget. We've got Con Sushi for $82. So I thought you didn't eat out much. We got $0 on the budget for eating out, but we got $82 on sushi.
That was a friend invited me for my goodbye from Miami, and I paid, but he sold me his half. Or I don't remember if he sold me the whole thing or just his half. I don't remember.
Eating out, I mean, that should be, I'm hoping you're not eating out in LA right now without a job.
No.
Okay, good. Okay, we got T-Mobile for $124. How many phone plans do we have? And I'm assuming it's financed.
Just one.
Just one, and it's financed, probably like $60 a month payment on the phone?
Yeah, 70 a month.
70 a month? Okay. And that's something too. Phone plan, $124. I don't know how it works with a phone that's not paid off. That'd be a little more difficult, I think. But like Mint Mobile and some of the other platforms have a lot lower phone plans these days. That's something you should also look at, is how can I lower my phone plan expenses? Because that is not cheap. We got car repairs for $128. We've got different parking. We got Five Guys for $20. We've got Domino's for $21. We got Walmart for $55. I mean, these are things that, again, while you're leading up to moving out to LA, definitely should not have been spending as much money eating out when you know you're going to be living without a job out there for a hot minute.
Yeah.
Uber for $21. Why are we Ubering when we got a car? We got 3 different Ubers for $20 each.
For the car repairs, I had to go to work, so when my car was at the shop, I had to Uber to work.
Taco Bell for $10. We've got, what is this? So the Zelle illicit margarita for $741. What is that?
That's I would send my mom, because since the car was under her name, or the insurance, I would send her the rent and the insurance fee.
Okay, that's rent and car insurance. Okay. Got more gas in here. Amazon for $38 on March 11th.
That was some moving bags to pack my stuff in to come to LA.
Amazon, there's another one March 11th for $35.
Body wash. I bought it in bulk because Walmart didn't have selling them individually anymore. That's 4 months of, I guess, hygiene stuff.
Dang, so you packed a suitcase full of body wash to fly out to LA?
It was only 4 bottles.
Walmart again for $50. Okay. And then we got, it looks like, I guess, your flight out to LA for $118. We've got your Airbnb for $1,300. More gas, which, again, I mean, frankly, these transactions don't look like a ton because there's only a few big ones. We've got really the $700 one. We got $100 for taxes. It looks like you paid a tax person for it. We've got your rent and car insurance with your mom. You got the Airbnb and you got your flights. But that adds up quickly. We got $3,800 in expenses because you're not tracking your expenses. So moving forward, I implore you to please just budget every single expense, have a category, set category list for them, use a tool to do it. It'll make it a lot easier and give you a lot better picture for your overarching picture. So have no income. You have to be very, very particular about your expenses. Otherwise, it's going to be drained a lot quicker than you think. So is that something you're willing and open to doing?
Yeah, I was at the moment I'm literally only paying rent and groceries. But like you said, the small things add up here and there, like that one day you went to the movies and then the next week you ate here or whatever.
And car insurance, and you're going to be out at a gig and be hungry and you're going to go eat out. I mean, those things are going to happen now that you're out in LA still. So you're still going to have different expenses that, yes, you might think it's just food, but We've got gas. We've got eating out because you're going to be hungry on the job. You're going to have transportation. You might have to Uber to a gig. I don't know. But these are things, parking, you're going to have to think about and make sure you.
Yeah, parking here, you pretty much have to pay to park anywhere.
And gas is, I know gas isn't cheap in LA. You got traffic that's out the wazoo, and you probably have to drive halfway across the city to get to a job. So, yeah, number one, budget. You got a budget. Number two, you said right now you are not working. You have obviously looking for gigs, looking for opportunities. What type of roles are you looking for right now? Is it only in the film world? Are you looking for full-time roles? Are you looking for just gig work? What's happening on the job side?
So my main thing that I was looking for is, of course, things relating to my career of acting gigs. But I'm also applying for regular jobs, part-time, that I could probably work early mornings or overnight to, of course, pay my monthly essentials, since gig work is not guaranteed. I don't know when my next gig or where it will come from.
How many different part-time jobs are you applying to right now? A week?
The first 2 weeks I was only doing the acting stuff. This week I started the regular jobs. I say I probably already applied to around 60.
60? Okay. That's definitely something. Second suggestion is, I don't care if it's a retail job. I don't care if it's in a grocery store. I mean, right now in your situation, I know you want to make it out in Hollywood, and a lot of actors and actresses, to get their start, they got to pick up jobs they don't want to do to make ends meet. And the last thing I want to do right now, you got $2,200 in your bank account. I mean, at minimum, your monthly expenses is probably, at minimum, is $2,000. So you got about 30 days worth of runway out there right now. And that means we got to figure out who can hire you this week. Is it going to be a server at a nice restaurant so you make some good money with tips? Is it, and that's late at night? Is it going to work at the grocery store? Is it going to work at an Amazon fulfillment center just so you can have income coming in? That is something you really need to get down, keep doing, hustling, because you got a timeline of 30 days right now if you don't have zero income. And right now you said you brought in $500, $600 the last month. So, okay, your burn's $1,400. That's a month and a half. What happens 45 days from now that continues on that path? Do you have a plan for that?
With what I have in my bank account now, that's already taking out what the rent for May. So with the numbers I have in my bank account now, it should be enough to pay also the rent for June, and I guess the groceries for at least May.
Okay, so you got May and probably June for both of those, roughly, plus hopefully $500 in income in May. So we've got 60 days worth of runway. I don't want that to get below 30. I don't want to get that below 45. So if I was you, I'd be doing everything in your power this weekend. When you're not working a gig job, it needs to be going to retail shops, walking in there and applying, going to restaurants, going in and applying to everything online that's physically possible, both gigs and not gigs. I know you want to chase a dream, and I don't want to tell you, hey, don't chase a dream, but I want to tell you, you got to get a job to chase that dream. And you got to figure out, because what happens at the end of June? You out of money. Are you going to go back to Miami? What's the plan there? Because right now, that's really your hard deadline. Because one, I wouldn't suggest getting a credit card to do this life. And two, you probably physically can't get a credit card since you just declared bankruptcy. It's what's your plan if that doesn't shape out?
Wait, you were saying about the carding the different places. Yes, yesterday I started carding gyms in my area, because I know gyms tend to have funny hours or early mornings or late nights.
Yeah.
So I called a couple of them yesterday. Some weren't hiring, some said they were going to call me back because they were busy, and they didn't. So I'll call them again tomorrow. So if worst case scenario that let's say I don't get any job on time or any gig or whatever, I mean, the only option I would see is to pretty much live in my car while I continue to chase my... I don't want it to come to that. That's obviously a very shitty scenario.
Yeah, and you just have to make sure you're planning for worst case scenario. And that's worst case scenario. How do we not prevent that to happen? And how we prevent not happening is, yeah, you're doing a good job. If you're planning 60 jobs a week, you got to figure out next week, how's it 100? How's it 150? You just have to do everything in your power, because if you care about this dream and you want to go and get it, let's make that happen. Because I can promise you, living out of your car is not going to be a fun situation. And it's not going to make you be rested to actually perform in your job or in these different gigs that you're chasing. So hopefully you have a fire in your butt and you get after these next few weeks. And I hope I get an update from you in 2 weeks, or hopefully get an update for the next 7 days. Hey, you got a part-time job at a restaurant and you can bring in $400 a week from that. I mean, that would go a long way if you work a couple nights a week at a restaurant and make some money there. So that's number 2, is getting a job. You have to budget whether you have a job or not, because you have to make sure you know every single expense. But number 2 is getting a job, because you need to have an income. Otherwise, we're out of money. And then number 3 is, even when you get a job, increase your income, start making it in the Hollywood world, or get a higher paying job there. You really have to make sure you continue to stick to a budget and don't let lifestyle creep get you, because you saw that happen with, even when you start working part-time, you stopped tracking your expenses, you stopped understanding where your money was going, and it led to a bad financial situation. So
yeah,
you have to make sure that you hold yourself accountable moving forward. And I'll do follow-ups with you. I'll email you and ask you for updates, but you just have to if I was you, I already declared bankruptcy, I would say no to debt for the rest of your life. I mean, a mortgage is the only thing. But like cars, credit cards, personal loans,
I don't plan on getting another credit card, to be honest, because
good.
I rarely use them, and then that 1 year that I just started putting everything on the credit cards, what would happen?
Good. You've had that realization. So we need to stick to that and make sure you don't do that again. And then apart from that, you just need to make sure that you have a plan. And if your goals and aspirations are to become an actor, yes, actors can make a lot of money one day and you could make it big and make millions of dollars in a year. But until you get to that point, you have to start figuring out how do you start saving and investing for retirement. Once you have a stable income, you have an emergency fund built up. So when stuff happens, car breaks down, you'll be able to make your bills paid. You then can start looking at investing. And have you thought about investing or talked about investing or ever invested in the past?
I looked into it for a while. Not a while, but like I kind of did some research here and there. I tried it once. I don't remember with what company or on Robinhood, because my friend was into it and he was kind of showing me some stuff, but eventually I stopped doing it.
Can I tell you something? Don't listen to your friend.
Well, yeah, I wasn't listening to him, but I was like doing my own research to try to see, I guess, how it worked.
Were you investing in single stocks?
I had only done it like a couple bucks because it's like just to see how it worked. So I wasn't like ever like seriously into it, just like some light research, just curiosity.
I'll send you some resources on index funds. You know what index funds are?
No.
So index funds, there's two different types of things you can buy. You can basically buy a single stock. So think a single share of Apple, Amazon, of Facebook, buying a single stock in the company. Or you can buy an index fund. So we'll think of an S&P 500 fund as the 500 largest companies in the United States. If you buy a single share of an S&P 500 index fund, you are essentially buying bits and pieces of 500 different companies. If a company goes under, they go bankrupt, then your entire portfolio is not blown up by one out of the 500 companies. So they're all weighted differently depending on their size. Index funds are diversified because there's 500 companies, and that allows you to de-risk. If you invested in the top 20 companies or even top few companies in 2000 during the dot-com bubble, half of those aren't in business anymore, and most of them aren't in the top 20 of the largest companies in America anymore. So I'm not the next Warren Buffett. You're not the next Warren Buffett. We're not going to sit here and be able to identify these are the next big winners or understand every single ins and outs. We have no control of those companies either. So why put all of our eggs in one basket on a company that is a single company versus diversifying across hundreds of companies where we're betting on the long-term success of whether that's an emerging market index fund, an international fund, a U.S. stock market fund, or at least diversifying across a portfolio of companies so we're not all weighted on a single company. Does that make sense?
So does it tell you up front, like which companies it is, or it's just like this group and...
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple different types of funds. So you can do like an actively managed mutual fund, and they'll have like a more of like a thesis of like, hey, we're investing in these types of companies, and it'll list out the current ones that they're in, but they might change that. But I'm more of a passive index fund kind of approach, and we'll think of like the S&P 500 funds. You'll know which companies are involved in that because it tracks the 500 largest companies in the United States. And so like on the different fund websites, they'll have transactions or they have it listed out. Hey, it's 5% Facebook, 2% Tesla, 1% this company. And so you'll know 0.1% of this company. So you can see exactly what companies are involved in it. But all of them have like different theses on it. But yes, to answer your question, yes, you can see what companies are invested in, which ones are not. But frankly, if I list out the 500 largest companies in the United States, I don't know a lot of them. You wouldn't know a lot of them, but they're billion-dollar companies and they're some of the largest companies in the United States. So I'm willing to bet on the overarching pie versus a single company. Does that make sense though?
It makes sense, but I'm trying to picture how it would actually look like when you go to invest the money. Is it like a little tab and it says, oh, here's 20 companies, these 20 companies?
Oh, no. So when you buy an index fund, it will show just that index fund ticker symbol. So if you buy index fund, it'll just show you own one share in that. And that share itself will be diversified across hundreds of companies. Like Vanguard, for example, is a large company out there, and they have dozens of different funds. So you go on their website and you buy one of their different funds. It has the thesis on there and what it's broken out into. But if you're on your investment account, it will just say the name of the Vanguard fund itself. It won't list out the hundreds of companies. It says that on their website. Does that make sense?
No, I get the concept. Yes, you can't picture how it would look like, I guess, when you go on the website or whatever.
Yeah, I'll send you some research on that, but you can look into it. But that's one thing too, is as you get your finance under control, as you get an emergency fund built up, you need to start looking at investing, because who knows if Social Security will be here when you retire, when you're 67. I'm about the same age as you. I'm 27, and I'm not betting on Social Security being here. So you have to start planning and figuring out how do you diversify yourself and not depend on Social Security and set yourself up for success. So the average return of the stock market is about 10% of historically, of the last 30 to 40 or 50 years. And so what I like to use as a number of the return on my investment is 7%. So you take 10%, which is the average, you subtract 3%, so your return is 7%. So we get rid of 3% for inflation. So if you're start investing when you're 27 and you invest $583 a month until you're 67, do you know how much money you'd have when you're 67 years old? You will contribute $280,000 over the course of that 40 years. Give me a guess what that $280,000 turns into.
I guess that would pretty much be your retirement fund.
No, it'd be $1.5 million.
Oh.
So if you invest $7,000 a year and each year that money grows by 7%, it continues to compound year after year after year. So if you invested $7,000 today and did not add a single other dollar to it, by the time you are 67, that'd be worth $114,000. So that just shows, because it's $7,000 today, next year on average it should be about $7,700.
That's the index funds?
So that's index funds. And that's about the average return of obviously the next 40 years, we could average 2%, we could average 15%, we could average 6%. I don't know, but I like betting on diversified investments, and historically the 30, 40-year return of the S&P 500 has been about 10 to 12%. So I'm willing to bet on that versus not investing at all. You need to start doing too is just continue to educate yourself on budgeting, on emergency funds, on investing for the future. Because if you wait until you're 40 to start investing and you invest that same $583 a month, instead of having $1.5 million, you'd have $557,000. So by waiting 13 years, it's going to cost you $1 million. And so that's why it's very important to start taking control of your finances now versus pushing off for the future. But my last question to you is, going through bankruptcy, what moment was it that you realized that you're in trouble? And what was going through your mind during that time?
I'd say when I was at about 15K, probably 13, 15K. I don't remember the exact moment, but I kind of saw it as it'll probably already take a while to get out of that kind of debt. And then I don't remember how much time after that, and then getting to 23. But I knew I was in trouble after about 12K. Whether I was able to pay it off or not at the moment, like I said, I've never been in debt or anything. So that it was like a slow accumulation over a couple months. And I was like, wow, I'm being and yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's a good way to describe it. And not a fun situation. And I'm hoping and praying you learned your situation or learned your lesson from this. And I hope that our conversation today helps you realize, okay, you need to be a lot more intentional about your finances, start budgeting more, start educating yourself more, because the last thing I want for you, I don't get anything out of you going to zero in your bank account. I don't get anything you going to $1 million. I just want you to succeed as a person, because you've made mistakes. And the only way that I think if you can have some control in your life, it's over your finances, because that will allow you autonomy, that will allow you to make decisions like traveling, like buying a new car, like helping your kids, medical emergencies, things like that nature. So I just want you to have peace and be set up for success. And you have the ability to do that if you start honing on your expenses and start making some different changes. So you've made the changes of, hey, no more credit cards, because clear bankruptcy, we can't do that anymore. But now we have to start fine tuning, making sure we budget, making sure we're hustling to get a job as much as possible. I don't care what the job is. And then 3, build up an emergency fund, educating yourself and investing. So
yeah, right after this, look into the index funds, or I guess whatever links you might send me.
Start looking at index funds. Do not start investing until you have a fully funded emergency fund and you have a job, though. There's no point in investing when you don't have a job. There's no point in investing when you're burning money every single month. You need a job first and foremost. You need an emergency fund after that, because your car is going to break, something's going to happen, medical emergencies. You might have to save up to get a rent versus having an Airbnb.
Yeah.
So you're going to need a down payment for that or deposit. So don't worry about actually investing, but what you can do is start educating yourself about it, so that when the time's right, when you have an emergency fund set up, then you can start investing and start building for the future. So hopefully someone out there can learn. Don't use a credit card like Jace. Don't make bad decisions.
Don't declare bankruptcy.
Try
your best not declare bankruptcy. Only do it if it's like completely, you have no options at all and you're in a bad place. It's going to screw up you getting a car or getting a place, and you're going to need that in the future.
And that's one thing too, is if you're going to get a place in LA, your credit score is screwed. So you're going to have a lot higher of a deposit to be able to have someone even take you into their apartment. So that's why you need to build an emergency fund, and you need to start building up a lofty amount of funds for being able to live out there on your own. So
yeah. And thank you for having me.
My key takeaway from our discussion is to make sure I track every single one of my expenses, whether it's $50, $100, or even 50 cents. What actionable steps do I plan to implement is to keep track of every single one of my expenses using a spreadsheet, and to just be more aware of what I spend while I'm out here in a way that I could actually see what I'm spending instead of just remembering it all. It added a sense of more urgency to getting my stuff figured out instead of just going with the flow. My goal to change my financial situation within the next 30 days is to finally land a part-time job while I continue to look for gig work in LA and acting or directing or writing. And just make sure that I have enough for, like you said, an emergency fund if something happens with my car, my health, whatever, because you never know. Next 90 days is pretty much to have at least $1,000 to $2,000 in savings more than I have now.
If you enjoyed this episode, watch another video. YouTube thinks this video on screen will be your favorite.